During any given month, almost 24 million Americans between the ages of 12 and 29 will experiment with illicit drugs, according to data from the National Survey of Drug Use and Health. One way of attempting to combat substance abuse has been through the use of televised anti-drug public service announcements, or PSAs. According to media psychologist and neuroscientist Renee Weber, health-related PSAs have two main goals: to change attitude and behavior.
If a message is able to change an attitude, so you think differently about a behavior, then it should also affect or change the behavior.
For example, as you watch this anti-drug PSA, ask yourself if this message would impact your attitude toward drugs.
If I had asked, if I try meth, will I become an addict? Or can you really lose it on meth? Or if I'd asked, will meth become the only thing I care about? I wouldn't be asking.
All right, can you load me up again?
Certainly, this PSA is high in what researchers call message sensation value, and it makes a strong argument. But is that sufficient?
There are very specific circumstances under which it's quite difficult to predict the effectiveness of a public service announcement.
The difficulty, as illustrated here, occurs when the person watching the PSA is a high-risk individual, one who has a history of drug use. Anti-drug PSAs attempt to educate the high-risk person, and the person resists.
Why would you like to be educated if you know it better?
Typically, when individuals watch anti-drug PSAs, they're asked to evaluate them in terms of effectiveness using this sliding bar. But high-risk individuals tend to rate all PSAs quite negatively.
If you're a high-risk group, you're typically not open to messages counter your behavior, meaning don't do drugs.
As high-risk individuals watch, they tend to think about flaws in the argument. This is known as counter-arguing, and it often results in rejecting the message. But of course, high-risk individuals are exactly the people you want to most reach. So for Weber, the question becomes,
how can you still persuade those people to follow the message and to buy it and to change their attitudes? That's the interesting part. We think can access by bypassing their conscious system and looking into their brain.
Richard? Hello. Okay, hi. Hi. Come on in.
Brain scans are performed on high and low-risk participants while they watch and evaluate over 32 pre-selected PSAs. After the scan, here at the Media Neuroscience Lab, Weber focuses on areas of the brain that are known to react when a person is undergoing a persuasion-related task.
So here we can see the average activation of low-risk participants, and I can switch on the activation pattern of high-risk individuals while they are watching our PSAs. And as you can see, the activation patterns are different.
In fact, these differences in patterns are striking enough that they can be used in a very unusual way to help to predict how another group of participants who have not yet been exposed to PSAs will evaluate and rank them. And these brain predictions work best,
in particular, in people that are strong in counter-arguing.
This is one of the first studies to use brain activation patterns seen in one group of people to help to predict PSA ratings in a second independent group. And while it's still a far cry from producing effective PSAs, it is a step closer to subtly using the brain to predict behavior.
That comes with a huge ethical responsibility.
The ethical issues are not so much directed at PSAs promoting good health, since most would argue that healthier living benefits everyone.
But the same procedures, the same methodologies can of course be used to convince people to make worse decisions, engage in risky behavior.
So, Weber argues, it's important that discoveries are not exclusively owned by any individual or group.
If it falls into the wrong hands, depending on what you think are the wrong hands, it can be exploited. There's no question about this.
Media neuroscience is a new and growing field, and it continues to pinpoint the neural basis of complex communication processes and uses such knowledge to gain a better understanding of persuasion and human behavior.